So just to give a little bit of backstory on what's going on here, this is my original story. For right now, the working title is um, Tales from Horus I, um, which is the planet that most of this story will be taking place on. Um, I have plans for things to happen on Horus II, and potentially some uh, Navy installations as well that exist in the Horus system near the jump gates. But yeah, so how I am doing this is we have the basically this is chapter one is a way to think of it. But yes, so you can think of this as the sections as kind of like chapters. Um, this is my first like draft of the story. Things will be I might need to be expanding on things. I might decide to um, like add extra bits as like backstory or whatever, and those might end up being different sections. But for now, this is section one. Um, right now, I am just calling it the opening. And it is being told from the perspective of Kimson Greg. Okay? And when I do get around to actually putting this into like a PDF format or whatever, it would be telling you whose perspective each thing is from. Because I don't want that to end up being something that's confusing, because I will be switching the perspective all the time. So first one is Kimson Greg, second one is Connie Shaper. But yeah. So without further ado, this is section one from Tales from Horus I. I stare out over the horizon. It's the same sight every morning, noon, and night. Horus threatens to cross the horizon as the air rages around the settlement. Rocky soil with jagged rocks providing life to the sparse plant life that somehow clings to this planet we have decided to call home these past years. Sometimes I miss Mars and its lush biome, but then I shake myself out of it, since I would have missed out on all these adventures that I share with my wife, Cassie, and the rest of our friends that roped us into this crazy life on the frontier. A familiar voice crackles over the comms. Kimmy? Did you get that water regulator working? We can't last another week with this much wastage. I look over my shoulder, half expecting Bill to be looking at me from a nearby window, and chuckle to myself. I straighten up and give my joints a stretch as I activate my comms to respond. Yeah, Bill. Job's been done for a few hours now. Just waiting on the report from Cass so I can make final adjustments. I look at the display strapped to my wrist. Speak of the devil. I just got the report from Cass now. Looks like we should be good to go. Water's flowing properly in hydroponics again. My reading's showing the evap tank, and I'm suddenly cut off by a second voice. Keep the comms clear, boys. Mr. Gregg, please come back inside. There's something I need to tell you. Oh, and grab your wife on the way. I'll meet you both in the mess. Out. I hear a chuckle from Bill. I better get to it, Kimmy. Don't want to keep Grace waiting. I'll be back in the lab. I feel like I'm getting close to a breakthrough from my sample on Horus II. Right. I expect a full briefing at dinner. Kimson out. I make my last check on the water regulation system. I've been spending the morning repairing before heading towards the Green Dome to grab Casey. Or Cassie. I'm going to constantly say my own character's name wrong. Silly me. Anyways. As I approach the glass dome containing our arboretum and gardens, I am graced by the beautiful sight of my loving wife exiting the building. When our eyes meet, I see her face light up behind her protective goggles. I jog towards her and embrace her as she secures the outer door. Hey, beautiful. I was just looking for you, I say through my filter mask. She returns my embrace and replies, Yeah, I overheard that over the comms. I always tune into your channel when you have to spend time outside. I'm always worried about a sudden storm carrying you away or a piece of equipment malfunctioning, and she goes silent as I press our foreheads together and stare lovingly into her eyes. You worry too much, silly girl. I'm not that timid little boy you met on Luna. I can take care of myself, and besides, we have Grace watching over all our backs. You know she would warn us of a sudden storm as soon as it showed up on our sensors, and I'd never let the sensors go down. Yeah, I suppose you're right, as usual. She lightly punches me in the shoulder as a sign of endearment and grabs my hand before starting to stroll back towards the main living complex. I follow her lead and enjoy this moment alone together. The wind rages too much for us to have much small talk at an arm's length without resorting to comms, so we walk in silence. When we arrive at the door to the living complex, I put my watch against the indent on the center of the portal. It comes to life, opening slowly down the middle, retreating into the walls along either side. The light... Anyways, where was I? The lights inside the airlock flicker on and we both step inside. Cassie slams her fist into the button on the wall and we are sprayed with compressed air while suction on the floor vacuums the dust and dirt so that we don't unnecessarily dirty this primary living space. After a few moments, the compressed air and suction noises cease. I step up to the inner door and press my watch into the indent on the door, same as I did on the outer door. Welcome home, Kimson Gregg, the automated voice calls out to announce my presence to anyone near the entrance. I remove my filter mask as my vision suddenly becomes dark. Are you going to help me or leave me hanging, I say. I hear a giggle from behind me as my loving wife gently removes my goggles. I turn to face her and she immediately closes on me for a kiss. After a quick kiss, I press my forehead into hers and wrap my arms around her lightly as I remind her, we better not keep Grace waiting. She doesn't pull us away from our jobs unless it's something important. Cassie smiles and nods. I hold her hand and lead her down the hallway towards the mess hall. Along the way, we pass the open passages heading towards each of our own personal habitations, as well as the communications room and activity room. Cassie breaks from my hand and skips off towards the kitchen, which sits beside our destination. I shake my head and call after her, "Where you think you're going, Missy?" She flips her hand at me as she passes through the doorframe into the kitchen, calling out, "I'm thirsty, babe!" "Don't worry, I'll grab one for everyone. I'm sure the Hios could use some lunch." Wait, Hios? I think to myself. I didn't know Steve was going to be joining us. I step through the doorway and am greeted with the mischievously smiling faces of not just the Hios, but the Shapers as well. Surprise! They all call out in unison.